All right, this is the review for test 4. So we're going to begin at the first section. It asks you to identify the slope and y-intercept of each linear equation. So number 1, you have 2x plus 3y equals negative 12. So your equation is in standard form. So I would put it in slope-intercept form. That way you can see the slope and the y-intercept. So by doing that, you're going to subtract your 2x, bring down your negative 12, and then get y by itself by dividing by 3. So we get y equals negative 2/3 x minus 4. So when we put it in that slope-intercept form, you can easily see the slope and the y-intercept. So our slope is negative 2/3 and our y-intercept is negative 4. Okay, so in the blanks, make sure you put the right number in the right blank. You would tell me negative 2/3 in the slope blank, and you would say negative 4 in the y-intercept blank. Now, you could write it as an ordered pair, but you don't have to. You can just simply say negative 4. The second one is y equals negative x. Now, this one is already in slope-intercept form, so our slope would be what's on x, which is an understood negative 1, and our y-intercept, there's no plus or minus number out here, so that is understood to be 0. Okay, so it's crossing, this line crosses in the origin. Our third one is x minus 4 equals 0. X minus 4 equals 0. Now, if you look at it, this is considered one of our special lines because you're missing a variable. There's no y. Okay, you do not have a y in your equation. So that signifies this line will not cross the y-axis. So you don't have a y-intercept. You need to make sure you tell me none. There is not a y-intercept. So don't put 0 because just like on number 2, 0 is an actual place. That's the origin. Don't leave it blank. You need to make sure you say none. There is not a y-intercept. Now the slope you need to just know because there's no solving. This I'm not asking you to graph this, so I don't need to know where it's crossing x right now. The slope of all vertical lines, this is a vertical line, this is an x only line. The slope is going to be undefined, okay? The slope is undefined, the y-intercept. And you can tell me the y-intercept is undefined if you want to, if that helps you remember that it's double undefined, because undefined means it doesn't exist. Okay, it can't happen, doesn't exist. So that would work if you want to write it for the y-intercept as well. But both the slope and the y-intercept, they don't exist, undefined. The fourth one, you have 5x minus 2y equals 8. So we're going to put this one in slope-intercept form, solve for y by subtracting our 5x, bring down the 8, and divide by negative 2. So y equals a positive 5 over 2x minus 4. So our slope would be positive 5 over 2, and our y-intercept is negative 4. And number 5 in this section, we have 3y minus 10 equals 2. Now again, if you look, this is going to be a special line. However, you have y this time. You're missing x, okay? So this one is going to be a y-only line. And if it's a y-only line, that means it's crossing only the y-axis. So if it's only going to cross y-axis without touching x, because it cannot cross x, it doesn't have one, then this is a horizontal line, okay? It goes from left to right, horizontal. So you need to know that the slope of all horizontal lines is 0. That's the slope. Now, you do need to solve for y on this one because I'm asking you specifically for the y-intercept. So you're going to add 10 and divide by 3, and we get y equals 4. So the y-intercept is positive 4. It's going to cross the y-axis at 4. Okay? Now, on test, you will have 5 linear equations in the same similar format where you're going to have to tell me the slope and the y-intercept. Okay? The second part is writing the equation of a line. Okay? So number 6, I want you to write the equation of a line that's going to go through the point 5, -2, and it's parallel to 3x minus y equals 1. 3x minus y equals 1. So when we write the equation of a line, we're going to use y equals mx plus b. Now, you need to know what your m and your b is. Now, I've given you this second equation to find your m. Now, you're going to have to take that m and plug it in with the point to get your b. So all I need from this equation is what's the slope. I need to know what a slope is. So when we're in standard form, we can do minus a over b. Now you also can solve it for y if that's easier for you. You can put it in slope intercept form. That way you'll see your slope easily. But if you're just needing the slope, I don't need to know where it's crossing the y-axis. I just need to know what the slope is. You can do minus a over b. And keep in mind, when we're in standard form, your a represents the number that's on x. Your b will represent the number that's on your y. So that would be -3 over b, which is a -1, which that reduces to +3. So the slope of that line is just 3. Now, parallel means use the exact same slope. So a parallel slope would also be 3. They would be the same. So now you have your M, you have your point. We're going to plug it in to find our B. So our Y number is -2. Our parallel slope, M, is 3. And our X is 5. So we have -2 equals 15 plus B. And then to get B by itself, we're going to subtract 15. And that will give us a -17. So the y-intercept is -17. Now, you're not done. In my blank, you're going to have to tell me the equation. So you got to make it in equation form. And so that equation would be y equals 3x minus 17. You must make sure you plug in the m and b, and you got to have an x and a y to make a full equation. So the equation of this line would be y equals 3x minus 17. Now that's in slope-intercept form. What if in my instructions I ask you to write your answer in standard form? Okay, so you would take this answer, y equals 3x minus 17, and you would put it in standard form. Now, the first thing you would do is make sure you don't have any fractions. This one, you don't have fractions. So if you were to have fractions, you would have to get rid of the fractions first. And so I don't have that in this case. So the only other thing I need to do is move x in front of the y. When you do that, it becomes a -3x plus y equals -17. And the second rule I told you about standard form is that your x is in the front and it can't be negative. So that means you would need to divide off a -1. And that just means I'm going to change everybody's sign. That becomes a +3x, a -y, and a +17. So that would be my equation if I ask you to give me the answer in standard form. Okay. Number 7, it says let's write the equation of a line that's going to go through the point 2, -10, and is perpendicular to x equals -9. So this is a special line, x equals -9. So that means that this is a vertical line, okay? This is a vertical line. So if I need to cross it, this is special, then I need to get a horizontal line. So there's no work really on this one. Your answer is just y equals -10. Remember, if it's special, and I say special meaning one variable, if I say perpendicular, you got to give me the opposite, the other variable. So I'm asking, I gave you x, so you must give me the y of your point. That's what perpendicular means. I got to have the other special line in order for it to cross. So my equation would just be y equals -10. Number 8, and I'm going to do it on the another slide. We're going to write the equation of a line that's going to go through the point -12, +7, and is perpendicular to 4x plus 5y equals 3. So I'm giving you another equation, and all you have to do with this equation here is find the slope. And we're going to find the slope by doing minus a over b, which would simply be a -4 over a +5. So the slope of this line is -4/5. Now, I didn't ask for parallel though. I asked for perpendicular. So perpendicular slopes are opposite sign, reciprocal, or flipped. So you got to make sure if this one is negative, then your slope that you need to use is going to be positive. If that slope of that line would have been positive, then you need to use a negative slope. So we're going to use a positive 5 over 4 because you must flip it, the reciprocal. So this is the m that you must use along with that point because now you need your b. So we're going to take those three numbers and plug it in to find b. So our y is 7. M is 5 over 4. X is -12 plus B. So we're going to multiply, and you can type that fraction in, but this would give us a -60 over 4, which reduces to a -15. And so to get B by itself, you're going to add 15. And 7 plus 15 is 22. So our equation would be y equals 5 over 4x plus 22. That would be your equation, your answer. Now, because this one is a fraction, I just want to show again doing standard form because the one I showed on number 6 was not in fraction, did not have a fraction. So let's take y equals 5 over 4x plus 22, and let's put it in standard form. So this one does have a fraction, so we're going to get rid of it by multiplying every term by 4. Okay, that's your denominator. If you have more than one fraction, you get a common denominator. But we're going to multiply, and that's going to give us 4y equals, the 4's cancel, and that's 5x plus 88. And then next, you're going to move your x in front of your 4y. And when it moves, it becomes a -5x plus 4y equals 88. Then, you can't have a negative on the x when it's in the front, so you got to divide off -1. And all that means is change everybody's signs. So you get 5x minus 4y equals a -88. And that would be the exact same equation It's just in standard form. Okay, so I want to make sure I did show one if it had a fraction, how you would get that actual answer in standard form. Okay, number 9, it says we're going to write the equation of a line going through the point 7, -4, and it's parallel to x equals -7. So again, this is a special line. This is a vertical line, but I'm asking that you give me the parallel to it. So that would mean if it has to hit this point, then it has to be a vertical line that's going through 7. So my equation would just be x equals 7. Parallel means the same. They got to look the same. They got to move the same way. So if I give you the X line, I need another X line. If it would have been the horizontal one, if I would have given you Y equals -7, then the answer would have been Y equals -4. That's what parallel means with the special lines. Number 10. We're going to write the equation of a line that's going to go through the point 6, 1, and -2, +5. Now, this time I gave you 2 points. So you got to first find the slope by using the slope formula. And the slope formula says you're going to subtract your y's over your x's. So that would give us 1 minus 5 over 6 minus a -2 makes that a +2. So we have -4 over 8, which reduces to -1/2. So that's your m. M is -1/2. Now you still got to give me b. So this one a little bit of extra work. You still got to find b. So it doesn't matter which point you use. You can use the first one, you can use the second one. They both will give you the exact same b because they're on the same line. So I'm going to use the first point, and this is my m, and we're going to plug in to y equals mx plus b so I can find this b. So my y is going to be 1. My m is -1/2. My x is 6 plus b. So you know that's -6/2, which is a -3. And to get b by itself, we're going to add 3, and therefore we get b is 4. So our equation would be y equals -1/2 x plus 4. Number 11 says write the equation of a line that's going through the point 13, -6, and is perpendicular to x equals -4. Again, this is a special line. Okay, I gave you a couple of these special lines. So you're going to simply, perpendicular means tell me the opposite special line. When I say opposite, I'm meaning the difference between a vertical and a horizontal. So if I'm saying perpendicular, I don't need it to be another vertical line. I need it to be a horizontal line. That would be the opposite of the other variable. And so that would just be y equals -6 is your equation. And then number 12, you have write the equation of a line that's going to go through the point 9, 11, and you have a slope of 2/3. So this is just strictly straight plug in to find b. So we have y is 11, my m is 2/3, my x is 9 plus b. And so you have 11 equals, this would be 18/3, which reduces to 6. and you're going to subtract 6. So b equals 5. So your equation would be y equals 2/3 x plus 5. All right, the next section is on circles. So number 13, 14, and 15 is asking you to find the center radius form of the equation of each circle. So I'm wanting you to give me the equation of this circle in center radius form. So if I was to have the center as 0, 8, and the radius is 7, then we know the form, and I'm going to write it over here too. You're writing it. This is what the center radius form looks like. So if we have 0, that's just going to be x squared. You don't need to put x minus 0 squared. That's just going to be x squared. And then we have plus y minus 8. Keep in mind it has to be the opposite side when it's in the form. And it's going to equal 7 squared would give us 49. So our equation in center radius form would be x squared plus y minus 8 squared equals 49. On 14, we have a center of -9, -1, and we have a radius of 2 square roots of 5. So that equation would look like x plus 9 squared, got to be the opposite sign, plus y plus 1 squared equals. Now you can square this, which that would give me 4 times 5, which is 20. Or you can look at it as if there's a 2 on the outside, I had to have a 4 in the inside times that 5 to make me have a 20. Okay, so you can look at it one or two ways, but that's going to be 20. Very good. 15, our center is 0, 0 with a radius of 13. So that would just simply be x squared plus y squared. And if you square 13, that's 169. That would be your equation. Okay, the next two, I'm giving you the equation, and I want you to give me the center and the radius. Okay, so on 16, you're going to simply tell me the opposite. You pull out the opposite that's in those parentheses. So that would be a positive 11 and a -7. And you take the square root of 81, which would give us 9 as the radius. 17, we have x plus 2 squared plus y squared equals 48. And so that center would be a -2 and 0. And then the radius, now 48 is not as easy as 81. It's not perfect. So we're going to have to figure out what perfect number is in 48, the biggest. And that's going to be 16 times 3. So the square root of 16 is 4, and we bring down the square root of 3. So the radius would be 4 square roots of 3. Okay? The next part, you have the general form of the circle, and you need to still give me the center radius, but you're going to have to do a little bit of work to actually find it in the general form. Not hard, but this is where we were doing the completing the square. So on 18, if you have x squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 10y plus 25 equals 0. So first, we're going to group our x's together and group our y's together. So we have x squared minus 6x and a bubble. Or you can do a circle or a square or a line, but you don't put a number. You need a space there for a number. And then we got plus y squared minus 10y and a bubble equals, we know we take all of our whole numbers to the other side. And when you move it, it changes sign. So that's negative 25. And if you have two bubbles on the left, you're going to need two bubbles on the right. You got to keep it balanced. What you do to one side, you got to do to the other. So we're going to do completing the square for our x's, which means the middle term, we're going to take half and square it. So half of 6 is going to be 3, and 3 squared is 9. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. We're going to do the same thing for our y's. We're going to take that middle term, we're going to take half, and we're going to square it. So half of 10 is 5, and 5 squared is 25. So we're going to add 25 to both sides. So we're going to do our factoring, which is nothing but that parenthesis twice. So what goes in that parenthesis for the x's would be the same variable, same sign, and half of 6. So that would be x minus 3. I did the same thing for the y's. Same variable, same sign, and half of 10, which that would give us y minus 5. Equals, you add this up. Your 25s cancel, so you just have 9. So now we have it in center radius form where you can give me the center, which would be a positive 3 and a positive 5, and that radius would be 3. Nineteen, we have x squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 8y plus 22 equals 0. So we're going to group our x's together and our y's together. X squared plus 4x and a bubble plus y squared minus 8y and a bubble equals 22 is going to move over and it becomes a negative 22, and we're going to have double bubble. So we're going to do the completing the square off our x's. Half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So you're going to plus 4 on both sides. We're going to do the same off of our y's. Half of 8 is 4. And 4 squared is 16. So you're going to add 16 to both sides. Now, I would, and I mentioned this in class, check this number first, because you could get a negative or you could get 0, and those are special type of situations. So negative 22 plus 20 is a negative 2. So this is special. This is a negative. And when we know that it has to equal the number that you got to take the square root of to get your radius, that number got to be positive. If it's negative, we're going to have imaginary numbers. So you should remember from class that it can't be equal to a negative. So that means that this circle is non-existent. That's the answer you got to give me. It's non-existent. And that's mainly because it's equal to negative 2. And 20, we have x squared plus y squared minus 4x plus 6y minus 36 equals 0. So let's group it together. X squared minus 4x and a bubble plus y squared plus 6y and a bubble equals positive 36 and double bubble. we're going to do completing the square on our x's. So half of 4 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. And then we're going to do completing the square on our y's. Half of 6 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So if you want to go ahead and check this number just to make sure it gives you a real number, 36 plus 4 plus 9 is 49, and that's a real number, okay? So we're going to be able to finish this one on out. So we got our parenthesis squared for the x's and our parenthesis squared for our y's. Keep in mind, it's going to be the same variable, same sign, and half of 4 in that first parenthesis. So that's x minus 2. And it's going to be the same variable, same sign, and half of 6 in that second parenthesis, which will be y plus 3. So our center would be positive 2, negative 3, with a radius of 7. Okay. And so I do want to mention, it wasn't, I didn't give an example on 18, 19, or 20 where you had it equal to 0. But keep in mind, when you get to this right side, if it's equal to a negative, you will tell me it's non-existent. However, if you were to work it and it equals 0 over here, then your answer would be just a point. So make sure you remember what 0 means and also what a negative means. Next part is find the slope. You have 2 problems. Slope formula will be on the test. You are to just simply plug it in to give me that slope. So you have 0, negative 9, and 3, negative 9. I would hope that you see that you got the same y, which means if these 2 points are on the same line, because I'm asking you to find the slope, then this is a horizontal line because the y's are the same. So the slope would be 0 because the slope of all horizontal lines is 0. But I'm going to plug it in the formula for you to see that. So the formula, again, it says we're going to subtract our y's over our x's. So that would give us, just doing a little labeling, we would have negative 9 minus a negative 9, which would make that a plus 9, over 0 minus 3. And so on top, that's 0. Negative 9 plus 9 is 0 over negative 3. And any number, anytime you have 0 on top, your answer is just 0. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you were to have it reversed, if you had a problem and you're working, and let's say you got negative 3 on top, but you got 0 on the bottom, that would be undefined. Okay, 0 on the bottom is undefined. However, when you have 0 on the top, it's just 0. So don't get those confused. That you need to know the difference of when you have 0 as an answer versus undefined as an answer. Your second problem for slope, you got negative 12, 11, and negative 6, positive 7. So we're going to plug it in. 11 minus 7 on top. And we got our x's, negative 12 minus a negative 6, which is a plus on the bottom. So 11 minus 7 would give you 4. Negative 12 plus 6 is a negative 6. And that needs to be reduced. Make sure you reduce all fractions. That would be a negative 2/3. Okay. The next part asks you to graph each equation. Also be able to give the x and y intercepts and the domain and the range. Okay, so on 23, 3x minus 4y equals 4. Let me pull up a graph. All right. So first off, let's put this in slope-intercept form. I'm going to solve for y. So that's negative 4y equals a negative 3x plus 4. Then we're going to divide by negative 4. And so y equals a positive 3 over 4x minus 1. Okay? So in order to graph, I'm going to start off by putting my first point on the y-axis at my y-intercept of negative 1. So we're going to go to negative 1, and on the y-axis, that's where we're going to put our first point. Now your slope is 3 over 4. So that means we're going to go up, rise 3 lines, and I'm going to run to the right 4 lines. So I'm going to show my path in yellow. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, over to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. And my next point would be here. Okay. I need 3 dots, and you need to know that for tests. I need 3 points, and one of those points have to be the y-intercept. So I need to see that slope again. So that means I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to run to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where the next point will be. Okay. Now, once you have those 3 points, you can connect. If you want to do points on the left side, you can also do those. That means I would go down 1, 2, 3, but I would have to go to the left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's where that point would be. So you would see your points line up. My graph kind of moved. So once you have at least 3, you can just simply connect, draw arrowheads to show that it's continuously moving in both directions. Now, I also asked for the x and y intercepts, domain, and range. I want to make sure that you have not forgotten the concepts that was on the last test. So with this line, if you look, it's going to continuously keep going. So it's on both the negative, the left side of the x-axis, and the right side. So you know your domain is going to be from negative infinity to positive infinity. And my range would also be from negative infinity to positive infinity because it's up as well as it is down. So you have all numbers existing on this line, okay? That's my domain and range. Now, I also asked about the intercepts. Now, if you put it in slope-intercept form, you're going to have your y-intercept. But if I'm asking you specifically about your x-intercept, you got to remember that in order to find either x or y, you got to let the other variable be 0. So don't forget that. So if I'm asking you to find that x-intercept, then you need to let your y be 0 in the original problem. Go back and let your y be 0. So if we let y be 0, that gives us 3x minus 4 times 0 equals 4, which means this is gone. So you got 3x equals 4, and if you divide by 3, we get 4/3. So it's crossing the x-axis at 4/3, okay? So I would like for you to write that as an ordered pair. Write it as an ordered pair, and that ordered pair would be 4/3, 0, okay? So I don't want you to graph where 4/3 is, and honestly, you can tell where it's crossing. That would be 4/3. It's slightly just right past the 1, but it's closer to 1 than it is to the 2. So it's graphed. I just don't want you to have to use that as one of your points to make more points because it is a fraction. But I do want you to be able to find that x-intercept if I was to ask it on test. And that's just simply allowing the y to be 0. Okay. I could do the same thing for the y to find the y-intercept. I would let x be 0, and I would come up with -1. Okay. Let's go to the next one, number 24. All right, 24 is 2y equals -x. So we're going to get y by itself by dividing by 2. So y equals -1/2 x. So our y-intercept would be at 0 because there's nothing out here. So we know that that's going to be in the origin. It's crossing in the origin, crossing at 0. So our slope is -1/2. So this time my slope is negative. So I'm going to take care of the negative by going down one line. But if I go down one line, I still need to go to the right 2 lines. Do it again, go down 1, right 2. If you wanted to do points on the left side, you would merely go up 1, but you would have to go to the left 2. But all I'm looking for is 3 points, and that's including that y-intercept. And once you have your 3 points, you just connect and draw a line. Draw arrowheads to show that it's continuously moving. Now, keep in mind this slope was negative, so your line should be decreasing. When you look at this from left to right and follow it, your line should be going downward. That's decreasing. Domain and range would still be negative infinity to positive infinity for both of them. Okay. X-intercept. If I ask you about the x-intercept, well, the x and the y-intercept would be in the middle, be at 0. So you would just simply say 0, 0 for both the x-intercept and the y-intercept because it's crossing in the origin, and that origin 0 is on both axes. Okay. Number 25. Y equals 5. Okay. This one is special. This one is all right. So this is a horizontal line. This is a Y only line. There is no X. It does not cross X axis. So you're going to go to the Y axis at 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. At 5. And the only way you can go across that dot, that point, without touching X is to go horizontally and draw your arrowheads. So this is a horizontal line, and I need, it might be a blank on this part. I don't know. What if I asked you about the slope? This is, kind of like the first couple problems on your review sheet. You need to know that all horizontal lines have a 0 slope, and the y-intercept is going to be 5. That's where it's crossing. It's crossing at 5. Now, if I asked you about the x-intercept, you would simply tell me none. It don't have an x-intercept. The x-intercept doesn't exist because you see this line never crosses the x-axis. So you would just say none. But let's look at that domain and range. Now the domain, we know that means x-axis, and it's on the left as well as the right. So that would be from negative infinity to positive infinity. However, the range is only at 5. That's the only number on the y side that will ever be in this equation. So your range would just be the number 5. Okay? So kind of remember that when you have these special lines. And it would be vice versa. If, and I'm going to do this over here in green, if I had a vertical line, and it's at 1, 2, 3, 4. This is at 4. X is equals 4. And I asked you about the domain and range for this line. Well, the range is going to be from negative infinity to positive infinity because it's continuously going up and down. But the domain will only be at 4. The only x that's there is 4. So kind of keep that in mind with our special lines that, one or the other is only going to be one number. If it's vertical, then your y would be one number. I mean, your x would be one number. But if it's horizontal, your y would be one number. And that's dealing with the domain and the range. Okay. This is not on your review, but I want to mention. What if I ask you, and I'm putting that because this is not on the review, but what if I ask you to graph a line that passes through the point 62 with an undefined slope? I could set it up that way. So that just means that you would plot the point 62, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2. Okay, I want to see the graph of the line that's going to hit that point. That point has to be on it. However, the slope is undefined. So you got to remember, undefined means x only. So that's just the snazzy way of me telling you to draw a vertical line, okay, without me giving you the equation. That's just a nice way for me to see if all the dots are connecting, okay? So if I say graph a line that goes through a point, you should be able to plot that point. But look at where what type of slope I give you. I said undefined. That means it's got to go up and down. Now I could have easily changed that and said zero slope. And if I did that, it would have to go horizontally. So kind of let those dots connect because I could put it in words. Okay. Also, I could say graph the line that passes through -1, -2, and has a slope of -1/3. So we did one of these in class. So that's just, you're just going to plot those points first. So we would go to -1, -2. That's where that point would be. And to do a slope of -1/3, that means I would go down one line and to the right 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. So that's where the next point would be. I will do it again. Go down 1, 1, 2, 3 to the right. Or you could go up 1 and to the left 3. 1, 2, 3. And then connect. Okay. So I can grab, and a lot of times, sometimes, we try to make sure that all of the concepts are mastered by putting things in words. And sometimes wording can trip up some students. So I want you to see it's not anything any different than me writing an equation. It's just that you got to start at the point first. And vice versa on the review sheet, I had you, putting it in slope intercept form where you started with the y-intercept first. So, it's not set in stone where you have to start. But if I'm giving you the words, I want you to start with that point and then do the slope. Okay. You might see one like this as well. I could give you a graph and it says find the slope. And I would have these points. Trying to make the points big enough. Okay, so I can have a line drawn and I ask you to find the slope between these 2 points. And so I would hope that you would see that the slope would have to be negative because your line is decreasing, it's going downward. And then you would just count. Draw, you know what I've been drawing my movement with the yellow. I would just draw my movement. I'm going down 1, 2. So that's a -2. I went down 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. I went to the right 4. So that is going to reduce to -1/2. And that's what your slope is. Okay. So it's not anything hard. It just was worded differently. And I didn't have this one on my review, but I'm saying it during the review time. So you know, it is liable to be on test. Okay. So if I give you 2 points on a line, you should be able to count from point to point to find the movement, which is nothing but slope. Okay. The last 2 problems on your review, I'm getting back to the review sheet now. Number 26 and 27 are our translations. And I'm asking you to graph each function. So let me pull up a graph. So the equation is, and it says f of x, and y'all know f of x means y. It's just in function form. X minus 4 in absolute value minus 3. So that's the same as y equals the absolute value of x minus 4 minus 3. Okay, now this is your v, your absolute value function. So you might want to put the original function at 0 and then show the movement from that point, from these points. So this is the original function. I'm doing it in black. That's the original function. In red, I'm going to show this graph, that equation graphed. So I'm going to write our movements underneath it. You do know that when it's enclosed with X, okay, that's going to be your left or right movement, but you do the opposite. So that means we're going to go to the right 4, and then the number that's on the outside deals with your Y movement, and that's just going to be whatever it is. We're going to go down 3. So I'm going to take each point to the right 4 and then go down 3. So from my middle, from the origin, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then down 1, 2, 3. So that middle point has moved to that location at 4, -3. And then with the V, it's kind of easy to move the other points because they're diagonally from that middle. And then you connect. Okay. And then on 27, you have f of x equals x plus 3 squared plus 2. Okay, and again, you know that just means y. And this is our parabola, our squaring function. So we need to write, I'm going to write my movements on the side. Keep in mind when it's enclosed with x, that tells you left or right, but you do the opposite. So that means we're going to go left 3, and then the number on the outside deals with your y, which means we're going to go up 2. So the original, you probably want to draw it first, because that one has specific points, and I'm looking for those specific points. Okay, so I would take the time and draw my original, because the squaring is not like the absolute value where you got certain numbers. They don't just line up diagonally and you can just connect. So that's the original in black. So now in red, I'm going to do the translation, which from that center point, this point right here, I'm going to move it to the left 3, 1, 2, 3, and then up 2, 1, 2. So that's where it moves. This one also, I'm moving each point. Left 3, 1, 2, 3, up 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And then I will connect. And that's where my squaring function translates to. So this is pretty much the gist of your test. I've went over everything that could possibly be on the test. It's in the same format as this review sheet. I would take the time and make sure I can work everything that I went over on this recording. I can work it by myself. I really would have probably left this review sheet blank. That way I can rework it and I don't have to see the answers. And then I can go check myself. So your test will be on on the days that we discussed in class, on my Monday, Wednesday classes. Your test will be on Wednesday, and in my Tuesday, Thursday class, your test will be on Tuesday. Okay, so rework your review sheet. If you have any further questions, please send me an email. I try to work what I can and try to send to you, but this is your test. Okay, you have it. This is your review.